This is an audio tour of Rydel Cerezo, Home Sweet Home, on the ground floor of the Polygon Gallery. My name is Elliott Ramsey, curator at the Polygon, and I'll be walking through the exhibition in this short 10-minute description. Feel free to follow along in the exhibition space. Through the family of his Belgian, now ex-partner, Filipino-Canadian artist Rydel Cerezo discovered the photo archive of Brother Armand Lamounier, a Belgian missionary who lived extensively in the city of Baguio, where Rydel was born, from the 1930s right through to the early 2000s. Investigating this archive, Rydel traces parallels between his own photography as a queer Filipinx man in Europe and Canada, and the photographs of this Belgian man in the Philippines. Rydel works at the intersection of race, religion, and queer identity, and noticed that Brother Armand's images seem to sit in this same nexus. For example, that first photograph in the exhibition, Scout, was found in Brother Armand's archive with those marks on the figure's cheeks and lips. Rydel didn't alter it. So Rydel is interested in raising questions around the power dynamics of photography. Who is gazing at whom and why? Speaking of gazes, the next photograph of his ex-boyfriend's brother looking straight into camera, that was taken at the same table in Belgium where Rydel first learned about Brother Armand's existence. So, as much as this show is about archives and ethics in photography, it's also the story of a breakup, as Rydel and his then partner drifted apart over the same period of time that Rydel was making this work. You'll see a lot of the images are set in summer with romantic golden and green tones. They were shot over different summers in different locations, ranging from Surrey to the Okanagan to Belgium and, in Brother Armand's photos, the Philippines. But this summertime glow connects them all. There are lots of connections throughout. For example, Rydel learned that his own grandmother's shop provided the uniforms for the school in Baguio that was founded by Brother Armand's order of priests. One such uniform is pictured in the first still life photograph, along with the Brother Armand's photo of the mountainous road into Baguio. Here's another interesting serendipitous connection. Both Rydel and his ex-boyfriend's surnames meant cherry in Spanish and Dutch, respectively. The cherries, moldering and rotting on the ground in the large photograph, become a visual metaphor for sitting with grief. Once the fruit has fallen on the ground, it's no longer desirable to be eaten, but it hasn't yet decomposed. So it just sits there, and all one can really do is wait for time to take its course. Because of all of the amazing serendipitous connections throughout this exhibition, Rydel was inspired to make a work based on a loom, the idea of weaving together all of these threads and tying these connections. So embedded in the loom work is one of Brother Armand's original photographs, so that you can get a sense of the materials Rydel was working with in the archive. They appear much larger when Rydel rephotographs them, as he did in the work Sarolea, where we see Brother Armand on a motorcycle. And that same boy who's in that photograph also recurs in that little work in the loom piece. Further down, there's a second still life photograph, and it echoes the first, as Rydel's shot from the car window during a drive through Europe's Alps mirrors Brother Armand's earlier photograph of that winding road into Baguio. And then, next to this still life, Rydel actually includes his own image in the exhibition, taking a self-portrait in a mirror with that same camera that we see in the still life image. Now, across from Rydel's self-portrait is his photograph of Aggie, his non-binary friend who also grew up queer yet culturally Catholic in the Filipinx community. A lovely note about this photograph: Aggie had been considering top surgery, but actually changed their mind after seeing Rydel's photograph of them. It made them see their body in a new light and appreciate it. When taking these pictures, Rydel was inspired by French New Wave cinema, and so worked with a Filipinx actor to capture the next photograph, Darius, which portrays a sense of abandonment or being lost. Rydel wanted to work with Darius also not only because of his ability to emote, but also because of his skin tone, which is dark. It's close to Rydel's own complexion. And Rydel was thinking about skin color for that last photograph on the long wall, and the luxury of tanning. That's his ex-partner and his ex's brother tanning in their yard in Belgium. Rydel was always warned by his own family and networks in the Filipinx community in Baguio not to get too much darker, since skin tone was so affiliated with class dynamics in the Philippines. So Rydel was thinking a lot about the privilege and the luxury of lying out there in the sun and tanning without even thinking about it. Which also made Rydel think about what it means to succeed or excel or to pass as a person of color in a colonial system. In the next work on the perpendicular wall, we see a picture of Rydel's mother making honor roll as a schoolgirl with her parents beside her. Rydel and his grandmother hold the photo together as they think about how these imposed westernized systems, including Roman Catholicism brought by priests like Brother Armand, has shaped their lives. There are a few works in the show featuring text as well. Brother Armand left inscriptions on the backs of his photographs. One photograph actually showed a deceased boy about to be buried, and the inscription on the back said, "My little Pedro, 3 minutes before he is entrusted to the earth." Rydel shows only the back of that photograph, protecting the image of a person who couldn't have given permission. And he's superimposed the back of that photograph on a lush scene of the Belgian countryside. It's that large work on the central back wall of the exhibition. So Rydel is protecting this Filipino boy's image and also imagining a beautiful resting place for him. The mural work around the corner also uses text. You can see this work really well from outside the gallery by the water. Rydel worked with one of Brother Armand's direct descendants to decipher and translate his Dutch longhand handwriting. She had similar longhand, and so she and Rydel worked together to come up with a phrase for this mural. They landed on "Heaven waits for a body like yours" to subvert the Catholic idea that queer people aren't welcome in paradise. And they were inspired by one of Brother Armand's last letters, which said that heaven can wait because he wasn't ready to die and leave Baguio yet, which is a strange and extraordinary and in some ways even blasphemous thing for a priest to write. And the last photograph is another inscription, this one describing the ritual sacrifice of a boar. We see it in the small frame on the reverse side of the board that has Aggie's photograph on it. And on the back of this photograph, Armand has written, "Here his heart has been stabbed." Rydel was thinking about sacrifice, about all that's given up in a relationship. So these words take on a different personal meaning. The synchronicities and connections abound in this space, inspired by the interiors of the churches in Baguio, which have now been transposed into the polygon. All throughout, Rydel's photographs of himself and other Filipinx young people sit alongside Brother Armand's photographs of himself and Filipinx young people, gently probing the ethics of photography, who is gazing at whom, with what permission, to be represented how. And as much as there are thorny dynamics of power and consent at play, so too are there tender reflections on relationships, on home, and on belonging. Thanks for listening.